Catus, Maximus here, this time with a little review of the Dremel 400 XPR. So this is going to be the most powerful Dremel made. This is another garage sale find. It has some kind of, this isn't the stock collar, this is some collar for some type of accessory that's no longer with it. Anyway, same speeds as more traditional Dremels, 35,000 RPM at the max speed. The big difference is the fact that it is now 2 amps, and just for the longest time, we have some, I even have older Dremels, they renamed them to like 100 and 300 series, but the 100 series, 1.15 amps, the newer 300 series, 1.15 amps, so that's the big deal. Turn this on. Certainly pretty powerful. Still has replaceable brushes in the motor, but when I was turning this, I was noticing I was feeling some notching. This actually uses a permanent magnet motor, like a DC motor, that's just been tuned to run at high voltage and has a diode or is specially designed. I'm not sure, but there are non-brushless DC type motors that can be adapted for AC applications, and that's what they've done here. And I believe they did that in order to get the additional power, because you don't have to deal with the additional heat of having 2 sets of windings. A long time ago, I had reviewed the Black & Decker RTX and really liked it because it also has a 2 amp motor, and I had just noticed that it was a surprisingly powerful little Dremel tool. And it had a nice feature where this is the spindle lock, and in order to turn it on, you have to have the spindle unlocked. And it's good to see on the 400 series they've done the same thing. This button here is the spindle lock, so you can lock it and be able to tighten or loosen the chuck. But when you turn it on, I was wondering why I had the switch there. Now, I mean, as you can see, I can push it down. Then when you put on the turn it on, it locks it out. And that's always been an issue with traditional Dremels, is when you're working with them, occasionally you'll accidentally hit the spindle lock button, causing them to grind, or worst case scenario, really damaging them. One thing I was going to mention, this isn't the same stock collar. I think it actually can be swapped, like with this Dremel 300 here. I believe that is the case, yes. So since this kind of works with the 300 better, and so you can swap some of the bits, but I was reading online that they had changed the thread somewhat. So if we do something here, we have the 100 series, but this is the more traditional series, and there is just the threads seem to stick out. It's kind of hard to see that way, not much, but they seem to stick out a little bit more. Some people said that some traditional accessories, we have a right angle adapter, which we can, if I can get it to fit onto this properly. Oh, this isn't the square drive adapter. I gotta pull this off here. So we can get this, and this will thread on properly there. But for some reason, a lot of older Dremel accessories, we can see the threads start really deep. So if we pull the chuck off of this one too, since to use these adapters, you have a special chuck which has like a little square drive in it. So this still kind of fits on, but we can see barely. And so people have had issues. So it seems that Dremel has done some changes, which makes it harder or less compatible with the more traditional adapters and accessories, which is kind of unfortunate. So that's kind of the deal with the Dremel 400 XPR, is finally, after years and years and years, they gave it much more power. What I don't understand is why it's so bulky now. And that's one of the issues. It is heavier and certainly a lot bigger and bulkier than the old traditional sticks. I suppose we'll take a little look inside and see what that's about. At least you can replace the brushes. They just have these little pop-out covers, not screw down or anything like that. Wow, that clip is really, oh, interesting. This brush spring itself is integrated into the cover. And then there's our little brush. We'll do that on the other side here. So you just have to be careful when you're reinstalling to make sure this sits right in the middle of the brush there. Quite a bit of open space around there. They are decent. They actually have a dedicated copper wire, so they're not just relying on the conductivity of the brass guide. So reduces resistance, delivers more power that way. Got it apart here, obligatory cobweb. Some little pads to help reduce motor vibration. Case seems reasonably stiff. And here's our permanent magnet motor. You can actually, well, maybe right there you can see where metal particles have been sticking onto the permanent magnet. What we have here is actually a bridge rectifier, so that's what they're doing to convert the AC to DC. They're actually using not just a simple diode, but a bridge rectifier. So it's actually running pulse DC into this. So this is more like a cordless drill motor. We can see that there's actually pretty thick commutator bars. So the motor is actually pretty good and is obviously intended to at least last a couple, 3 sets of brush replacements. Ball bearing on the back has a little rubber isolator. That's to help reduce vibration. And then a ball bearing in the front. We can see that it has blue seals on both sides. And like a kind of a turbine shape for the impeller. There's our little lockout. It just sits in the little hole there. And we can see when you're running the power switch, keep this power cord from, when you're running the power switch, it's actually activating a switch way back here, kind of like how angle grinders work. So really, the extra bulk, I think is mainly due to the brushes and the brush guides, is to give them the longer lasting and heavier duty brushes. They needed more space there, so that's what they had to do. And then they used it by using this switch arm and just having extra space here. So that's really why it's so tall, is just due to they actually having replaceable brushes. And like the RTX, the brushes are in that permanently sealed motor. They're just on a little spring cam, which is curves in, and so they can be very low profile to fit inside the can. But when you want to make brushes replaceable, you got to have these guides, and they stick out, and so they're just going to use up some more space. So that kind of explains why. And since it's a bigger, more powerful motor, it's going to make for a larger unit. Fortunately, even though it does have a built-in strain relief, the cord is pretty easy to replace. We can see this push button spring loaded terminal. It's actually an expensive terminal in there, but makes replacing the power cord super easy. All you have to do is press those buttons, pop out the wires, pop in the new wires. Carbon resistors aren't great, but that's okay. At least they put in a bunch of glue and glue on the main motor wires to prevent them from fatiguing. Not a lot else. At least it seems halfway decently built. So that's all I got. I'm actually kind of stoked to have picked this up. I guess the worst thing is the threads they seem to be the same diameter and pitch, but there's some kind of leading issue where accessories may or may not quite fit properly from old Dremels to this new one, which is annoying. Not sure what went back in the slot here. Do like the fact that they still retain the little hook, but they've put these bumps in, so now you can snap it out of the way and it'll actually stay out of the way. So do appreciate that. Nice big brushes. Pretty easy to replace, that's for sure. Overall, it's actually a welcome improvement. It's been a long time that people, Dremels, were always weak. Since the 70s. Here we have one, I believe, that's from the 70s. This is an original 380 ball bearing. And then this thing was 0.9 amps on high speed. They went to 1.15 amps. And it was like that for probably 30 years or something, 40 years. I will mention that we can tell that old Dremels, there is a difference in the quality of power cords from the old one to the new one, that's for sure. This was a power cord built to last. Too bad these were just pretty weak. And for the longest time, that was the deal with Dremels. They were just strong enough. So I'm glad to see that they upgraded it to 2 amps. And it kind of shows here accessories are 1 1/4 inch less, or diameter or less. Due to those bigger cutting wheels, those quick lock cutting wheels were probably burning up a lot of the older Dremels. So they finally gave you a bigger motor. There's a lot of people who use Dremels who have been wanting one that has just a bit more guts. And that's where the Black & Decker RTX was so nice, is just because it was stronger. Even if you had to throw away the tool and the motor wore out, at least it gave you enough power. And so this is a welcome upgrade. Even if they did have to add the bulk, at least it's more traditional Dremel and replaceable brushes and halfway decent build quality. And it is indeed ball bearing. Anyway, really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Till next time, Catus Maximus out.